Just read this book. Can everyone test. Test. Good morning. Test 1, 2. Hey, everybody. We're going to get started. Sorry for the delay. I'm flying solo, and I don't know if anybody joining us via technology today, but I hope I've got it set up properly. We'll see. So thank you so much for being here today. This is our final session in the ABC Summer Series on faith conversations related to race and immigration and sexuality. We're going to conclude with a conversation about the refugee situation and how we as a community might do more to show welcome. As you may remember, we are a Matthew 25 congregation. And if you look at that text closely in the final parable, the parable that's often called the parable of the sheep and the goats, we learn about how Jesus calls us to care for the least of those in our community. And one of the 6 things that are specified are welcoming the stranger. And so today we're going to talk specifically about how we have in the past welcomed the stranger. And I'm so glad to have Margot Williams with us today, who was part of DCPC's efforts in the past to welcome several families in our community. And then we'll also have some conversation about what that looks like moving forward. I'm going to offer a prayer as we get started, and then a couple of comments, and then I'm going to show a video, and then I'm going to let Margot speak. So let's pray together. God of grace, we thank you for your deep and abiding love. Thank you that you always welcome us with open arms and call us to provide welcome to those in our midst, especially those that may seem lost and are not at home. We need to make them feel that way as you command. And we thank you for that, that promise that we will always be invited into your embrace, and that your church is a place where all are welcome. We thank you for this time set apart. Help us to be open to the leading of your Spirit, that we might learn and grow in faith. In Christ's name we pray. Amen. The study suggests reading from Ecclesiastes chapter 4, and the writer talks about finding this on the inside of their wedding band. Writer of the curriculum. This passage from Ecclesiastes 4 also speaks of the importance of working together and being in community. Hear these words. Two are better than one, because they have a good reward for their toil. For if they fail, one will lift up the other, but woe to the one who's alone, falls, and doesn't have anyone there to help. Again, if two are together, they keep warm. But how can one keep warm alone? And though one might prevail against another, two will withstand one. A threefold cord is not quickly broken. This is the word of the Lord. Thanks be to God. According to the UN, there are an estimated 85.2 million people displaced from their homeland. Those 2020 statistics. Because of war or famine or persecution, people are not feeling the ability to stay in their homeland. And so they go to try and find a new place to make a home for them and for their families. We're going to look at a little bit of the history of our own country's ability to receive those who have tried to find new homes, and look at what direction we might need to go forward to help make it possible for people to find a safe place to live. So I want to play a video, and it's about 10 minutes long, and I've got to run back and forth to check a couple of buttons, but don't mind me, just enjoy the video. Maybe just a little bit of feedback for a second. Share my screen.
When I'm closing a case with a family after they've been here 3 months, I know they're going to have questions the following day that they never would have even been able to think of initially.
The program that's sponsored by the federal government is a very short 3-month program. That's not enough time for anyone to fully acclimate, to fully become whole in this new country.
For decades, a wide network of resettlement agencies and grassroots organizations across the U.S., despite minimal funding, have continued to expand programming to support refugees through the first several years of integration.
We provide cultural orientation to new arrivals and to new people who come to our community.
And then we also have adult literacy training program that helps with tutoring in English.
We're helping people file for their green cards, their permanent residency. We're helping those that have been here for 5 years apply for citizenship.
One of the many ways that the resettlement agencies look to support refugees through the first 90 days and beyond is through community and congregational sponsorships.
Congregations over the years have reached out to us and said, how can we get involved? What can we do to support families as they come to Minnesota?
We connect a small group from a church with a newly arrived family to kind of fill the gap between the core services that have to happen, but also what we all really want, which is for our families to feel at home again.
Someone that they can call a friend, someone that they can call a mentor, who they can share some of the concerns, some challenges that they're facing, and someone who can advocate on their behalf as well.
There were a couple of families that we talked about co-sponsoring that didn't work out, and then eventually we found that we were going to be asked to co-sponsor the Font family, and they were really excited about it. And
they're so loving. There's a family cohesion that is really beautiful to see. I think it's a cohesion brought on by all the strain that they've been through. I just can't say enough about what a wonderful experience this has been for us, for our friends.
Eric and Gloria, especially Eric, always everywhere he is, to find the registration of soul, to registration of medical, helping me too much. I can't explain about them. I have a lack of words to say thank you.
In addition to programs aimed at addressing the first few years of resettlement, some organizations also offer workforce development classes to broaden refugees' employment opportunities.
The mission of the International Institute is to help new Americans achieve self-sufficiency and full membership in American life. We actually help people who want to become nursing assistants so they can start a pathway to a career in the medical profession.
In the medical careers pathway, I would say almost 95% of nursing assistants end up working in nursing homes and assisted living and other different formats of care.
But we also have a college readiness academy, so we can help people go to college and achieve their RN or LPN certification. So we really try to help people start a long-term journey. We do get to see people kind of progress through their lives here in the US, and that's really, I think, what makes the Institute a special place.
In recent history, anti-refugee and racially charged hate rhetoric has been on the rise.
Go back to your own country, we don't want you here. All Muslims are going to kill us, refugees are not welcome here, all of those sorts of things. And these conversations were happening online, but also in our churches.
Grassroots organizations like Unite Cloud of St. Cloud, Minnesota, are actively working to confront this toxic rhetoric and promote understanding and unity.
There was no one stepping forward saying, let's change this conversation and let's get to know each other and love each other as neighbors. And so why don't we just write a blog speaking some peace into this crazy online and community-wide issue that we're having. What happened next was unexpected, Minnesota-wide and national attention in the first few weeks of being in existence. It was kind of like people had just been waiting for somebody to try to speak some peace in this. And people said, just give me something tangible to do. Give me a place I can go and serve. Give me a person I can talk to. Give me an article I can share on Facebook and talk with the people in their circle of influence about the idea that we all belong here, we're all welcome here, and that our survival depends on everyone's survival.
The goal is to create relationships within the community. And so people see each other as human beings instead of seeing each other as the other.
Exclusion in a community really causes us to underserve, or in some cases even more harmful, misserve populations.
The place that they came from, police, was used as to enforce rules, and they are so scared when they see police to talk to.
I'm supposed to be coming here serving you, and I can't even speak to you, and I'm embarrassed and I'm flustered.
And so there was this division.
There was a gap in the community understanding. So we reached out to the Minnesota Council of Churches. We said, can you help us with this?
In Mankato, Minnesota, business owners, city officials, and other concerned locals organized the Tapestry Project to address the disconnect between refugees and the larger community.
So we really tried to look at what is the need in the community, what is the confusion around, and just to bring in very knowledgeable people to discuss those topics and then to have those conversations about them.
Envision that tapestry, that that fabric and all the different threads woven through there. That's what we really wanted to create, was kind of that social weaving.
It's about learning where people come from, and so our perceptions of each other can be changed. We encourage both sides, whether you've lived in the community for a long time or whether you're new to the community, to share your story.
The people that I was interpreting, we asked them a question, what did you gain from taking this abstract section? They always said that they feel more comfortable around police. They didn't know like police is so social. They can talk to you. They have kids. Like it's a huge experience, and they learn a lot.
And we all have something different to offer. And the more things we do together, the better we're going to be and the more creative we're going to be.
What you see and hear is that everybody's desire and everybody's wants and needs are the same. And although how we got to Mankato was very different, their hope and dream for the future is very similar to mine.
I get to know a lot of people in our community. It opened a lot of opportunities for me. I met people that have the same belief as me. And yeah, it's very amazing.
It's literally changed my life. What I've learned about the human spirit and character, it has made me a better human being.
People don't know about the resources that are available. And so again, if that border is broken and community members can talk to each other about, this is what you do when this happens, or this is where to go, that isolation is broken down and people feel like this is their community.
After its exit from the Vietnam War, the U.S. committed to resettling large numbers of Hmong refugees from Vietnam over the span of many years. The Hmong American Partnership, a grassroots and now national organization, was founded by Hmong refugees in 1990 to empower the growing Hmong community to move out of poverty toward financial and social prosperity.
Within the last 10 years, we have really evolved as an organization. The personal experience that we've had as refugee Americans, really using that as a foundation to create kind of like welcoming, circles to our emerging or newer, refugee groups. And so today, Hmong American Partnership speaks over 20 different languages in serving not only Asian refugees, but also, African refugees as well.
One of the primary focuses of not only Hmong, but all refugee communities is education. This has led to the founding of numerous charter schools like the Community School of Excellence, which clearly exemplifies their perseverance and desire to make a lasting contribution to the larger community.
So it's really what then is the responsibility of our generation in terms of really being able to inspire people to dream and inspire people to be part of those journey, something that generations in the future can look upon and say, if we meet each other halfway and really learn and really share openly and give openly, I think the world will be a better place and we become a better community.
Sorry about the pause. So I think this first one, I think you've been to some of these the last few weeks. I think the way it works is if you have a comment, it's preferable if you can speak into the microphone, which I'm going to pull out right now, so that the people tuning in later can hear. If you're not comfortable doing that, just tell me, and I'll try to relay your comments. Well, I'm just wondering if there are any initial reactions to the
Test 1, 2, testing.
initial reactions to the video or any of the meeting. Thoughts? Is the microphone scaring you?
Everybody, good question. Make sure. So about 5 years ago, I suppose, I began to look into the church's conversation about our welcome to refugees. We began to work with a couple of area partners, Church World Service in Greensboro, Galilee Ministries in Charlotte, and have some conversation about what might look like for us to be more involved in making welcoming space for refugees in our communities. It was just before that time, just before the Trump administration came into office, and it was just following that the situation changed dramatically. The numbers of refugees allowed into the country was reduced, and there were really no meaningful ways to be in partnership because there were not new people coming into the community. So we pretty much stopped that conversation for a while. But in recent days, that has emerged, especially given some of the challenges that we faced at our own border. Was anybody here last week for Matt Sampson's sharing? And he spoke a lot about that general crisis right now that's at our southern border, much due in large part to unrest in Central America and Mexico. But we are wanting to continue that conversation and continue those partnerships and find creative ways to live into the teaching of Jesus to welcome the stranger. And so I'm going to invite Margot to come and share a little bit about some of the ways the church has been involved in that journey in the past, and you'll have some questions for her. So Margot, welcome.
Robert, thank you for having me speak about this. The times I've been involved with the refugees resettlement in this country, and especially at this church, have been the times that I've felt closest to the church because of our mutual goals of helping people, bringing them into the community. As an aside, the video referenced the Hmong resettlement. Do you know that the people who sell the most beautiful flowers at the Davidson Farmers Market are Hmong? And they have a huge farm now that growing and growing and growing because their flowers have become so famous regionally. And in Caldwell County, it's one of the largest resettlements of Hmong in our country. So we're very lucky that they have joined into the Davidson Farmers Market and were there from the very beginning. What I should do today mostly is to lift up one of our older church members, Ann Watt. I don't know if you all have had the pleasure of knowing her through the years. She's now at the Pines and couldn't be here today. But Ann is the person who was the most involved in our initial resettlement of a family from Laos, the Inthanao family. That pronunciation, Sima and Salmu, and their very young children. And our church participated in the resettlement that was mentioned after the Vietnam War ended. So in the early 80s, the Inthanao family came into our church and we embraced them as their resettlement partners and tried to find a job for Sima, for the man of the family, and found a job for him in working in the grounds at Davidson College, working with trees and plants, and he was very adept at that. But a few months later, he brought Ann a piece of paper, and the paper was dirty. It had streaks of old dirt and mud on it, and it was in his language, not ours. But as he tried to explain to her in his halting English, he was trained as a phlebotomist. He had the best training in that field that one could have in Southeast Asia. And this was his certification. And got it translated and came to my husband at the Davidson Clinic, which Bill had just started in 1978. And she said, I believe that Seema is a very well qualified phlebotomist. Would you consider hiring him? Faith aligned Bill needed a phlebotomist at the Davidson Clinic. Found that Seema was a brilliant, gifted person in this field. He could take your blood and you wouldn't even know you'd been stuck. The other thing about Seema is that he was one of the experts in the whole region on tropical diseases. So people called him from all over about bloodborne tropical diseases, which he had the most experience and knowledge about. So Seema had a wonderful career at the Davidson Clinic, and his wife, Son Mu, worked in a variety of places. And one of the places called Ann and said, do you have any more people like Son Mu? She's our best worker. So their resettlement was extremely meaningful to us. They lived in Ann White's little apartment attached to her house for a few months, and then they found their house. And now their children are grown and married with children of their own. And so they are very much a part of our community and very much American. The family that I had more involvement with actually is a family from Ukraine. And the way this happened is that, Robert, I'm taking my watch off so I can watch the time. Their daughter, the daughter of this family, is a young woman named Olga Krimin, K-R-I-M-O-N. And she was here on one of the first exchanges with Russia and Ukraine after perestroika. So this would have been in the early 90s. She came to, for some reason, she picked up Rosemary, Raynell, and me and came to us and said, I'm worried about my family. They are in Ukraine, and Ukraine is notorious for being anti-Semitic. And her family were not religious Jews, but they were ethnically Jews, and they felt more and more at home in Ukraine. Swastikas were being painted on the sides of buildings, and there was just a lot of anti-Semitic activity. So Olga came to us and said, would you help me bring my family to Davidson? And Rosemary and I said, yes. We weren't quite sure how that was going to work. But then we came across this wonderful thing. It was a Blumenthal grant that was being administered by the Jewish Community Center in Charlotte to bring specifically Jewish refugees who were facing peril in Semitic countries. So Rosemary and I went to the Jewish Community Center and said that if they would allow us, we would like to participate in the grant. We didn't want to use any of their money, but we just wanted to use their ability to get people into this country in sort of a streamlined way, which the Blumenthal grant had arranged with the immigration authorities. And so then I came back and presented to the session this opportunity for us to help resettle Olga Krimin's family. And I'm so proud of the session because I presented the fact that we didn't want to use the Blumenthal money, that we just wanted to use their ability to bring people into the country more easily. And so our session contributed $6,000 to the Blumenthal Foundation, to the Jewish Community Center. And I was so proud of the session for making this leap of faith to bring this family to us. And so then Rosemary and I went back and said, we would like to participate in this as well. And a woman at the Jewish Community Center said, you understand they're Jewish? And we said, yes, we understand they're Jewish. Do you want them to become Christian? And we said, no, that's not our goal. Our goal is to resettle them in Davidson, to make them feel part of this community, whatever religion they embrace, or whether they embrace any religion. We just want to bring them into this country, and our church is ready, willing, and able to do that. So it took about a year. And in 1993, the Krimin family came to America. And the wife and mother family, Vika, sewed like old heirloom pieces of silver and things that were important to her into her skirt as she left Ukraine, because that was, in addition to their suitcases, that was really the only safe way she could exit this country. And so they came, and once again, they stayed in the little apartment attached to Ann White's house. And the people who were most involved in their initial stages of resettlement were Bill Strong, Rosemary and Charlie Raynell, and Bill and me. And I'll never forget a dinner that Vicka prepared. As we came to find out, she was a gourmet cook, an exquisite cook. And she had only been here a month, and she had gone to the grocery store and found what things she could understand they were. And she prepared the most beautiful meal for us around this teeny tiny table at Ann White's apartment. And we were all squashed in there together. And it was one of the most meaningful meals I've ever had. And so they came and came to our church faithfully every Sunday. And they all had these incredible bright blue eyes. And I can remember I was giving a prayer one day from the lector, and I looked out into the congregation. There was Ilya looking at me with those bright blue headlights. And I thought how wonderful it was to have him sitting there. They had trouble finding work in their fields at first because, as Vicka said, they had the best training that Ukraine and Russia could provide. In her particular case, she had her master's in economics. And as she giggled and said, in an economy that no longer exists, communism. So she worked in a variety of places and at the Pines, and made many, many good friends at the Pines. Ilya worked in a variety of places, and he had his master's in electrical engineering. So they were beautifully educated and prepared to learn English, which they did. They also brought their son with them. Of course, Olga was here in Davidson College. They brought their son, Yuri, with them. He was probably 18 or 19, and he studied English, and he was accepted into UNCC, where he got a degree in computer technology and engineering and graduated summa cum laude and received all the awards that the department gave out. Every time an award was given, Yuri Crimmins' name was said. So after Olga graduated, a year or two after the Crimmins had moved here, she had to go back to Russia because the country did not recognize her as a part of her family's visa. And of course, the Crimmins were devastated by this. And we went to immigration lawyers and tried to appeal that she was actually a part of this family and should be allowed to stay. So she went to Moscow and lived there for a couple of years. And I don't think Ilya got a good night's sleep the whole time she was gone. And when she got back, she decided that she wanted to move to California. She just heard about California, had some friends there. So she moved and got very good work there. But she always was most passionate about making art. And if you now look up Olga Crimin on the internet, you will find an amazing array of mostly portraits. And she's become pretty famous in this area. So look up Olga Crimin and you'll find her art, I'm sure. Then after Yuri graduated, he got a job with Intel in Folsom, California. And so he moved to California. And so the Crimmins stayed here another year. And then they said to me, we have to go to California. That's where our children are. So in 1999, it was very hard for me because for the first couple of years, as I told Robert, they didn't twitch or move that I didn't know about it. So I was very attached to them and to their friendship, but it was the right thing for them to do. They too moved to Folsom, and miraculously, Ilya got a job in his field for Pac Bell. So he was one of their top engineers until he retired recently. And get this, Vika got a job teaching English as a second language at a community college in Folsom. That's how brilliant they both are. They've both retired. Olga has 2 sons, of course, to whom they're very close. But what I realized in this effort that brought so many of our church members together was that we received a whole lot more from the Crimmins than they gave to us. They brought their joy, their intelligence, their gratitude just fully to us who participated with them. And as I said, being a part of this process, being so proud of our session for making this decision to participate in the Blumenthal Grant was one of the proudest I've ever been of this church. And those tender feelings, of course, never go away. So I hope that our church can participate in resettling a new family, because they will bring more to us than we could ever possibly give to them.
Sure. I'm going to ask Margot to stay there for just a moment in case there are questions you have about her story that she can respond to. I would love for you to share a little bit more about the specific ways beyond providing a place to live and helping with some of the connections that the church came together to make them feel more at home and welcome.
Sure.
And then after that, we'll see if there are other questions.
Well, I'll tell you, Robert and all, about a Christmas miracle. I was on the service committee at this time, which is one of the reasons I was involved in resettling the Crimmins. And at Christmas, we had the situation where Ann White had promised her little apartment to another family. So the Crimmins had to find another place to live. And money was an issue. I mean, we could get some money gathered up, and then they, of course, were both working. It was still an issue about where we were going to find for them to live, where they could still be in Davidson. So I was in the church sanctuary distributing the food for the White Gifts, which is, as any of you have ever participated in it, is organized chaos, but not very organized. And so we had grocery sacks on the pews. I think it's done differently these days, but we were distributing the food in grocery sacks, and I was in charge, and there were like 15 teenagers all asking questions. In walks Nathan Fishback, and he walks up to me and says, "Mrs. Williams." I said, "Mr. Fishback." He said, "I know you're looking for a place for the Crimmin family to live. I have a place over my garage. It's an apartment that we built for our children, which they don't seem to want. So I'd like to offer it to the Crimmins." And I said, "Well, Mr. Fishback, I don't know how much money we can gather for such a wonderful apartment," which I'm sure it would be. He said, "Oh, I'm not going to take any money," and then turned. And I said, "Mr. Fishback, when might we be able to move the Crimmins?" He said, "Today, if you can get it organized." So I couldn't get it organized because of the happy chaos in the sanctuary, but shortly after Christmas, they moved into this beautiful apartment at the Fishback's house, which is called Chartwell off of Avenger Lane. The Fishbacks have moved, but it was like I said, a Christmas miracle. There he came. There he said, "We're not going to charge any money," and then he walked off. And they had a wonderful relationship with the Fishbacks for probably the 6 years, the 6 remaining years that they lived in Davidson.
Thank you, Margot. Anybody have any questions about? Yes.
Did they receive help in learning English language? Did they do that so often? It's one of the biggest barriers.
So a question about language and what kind of assistance they received in learning English.
Vika, who learned English the most quickly, learned it from her friends at the Pines. They organized English as a second language classes for her there. And then she came home brought that knowledge to Ilya. And then Yuri was in school, so he was learning it double fast as he was studying. So it was the Pines who organized their classes. Members of our church.
Other questions, Lacey?
Margo, I was wondering, was the church involved with helping citizens? What were the steps that they had to take?
We really did a question about how they were assisted in becoming citizens or what process they went through to do that.
That's a great question, Lacey, and we did not participate much in their quest for citizenship. When they moved to Folsom is when they began that process. And in 2000, they became citizens at a beautiful ceremony at the governor's house in Sacramento. And I flew in and was there with them for them to become citizens. And it was a beautiful occasion, but it all happened in California.
It didn't take too long. I mean, it was a long process to become citizens.
Okay, Lacey asked if it were a long drawn out process. I don't believe it was, Lacey. I think it took probably 12 to 18 months at that point. And I should hasten to tell you that they made many close friends in Davidson. The Bentley family are two of the friends they made, Joel and Barbara, who were very close to them and did a lot with them while they were here. And then there were other specific families with whom they had friends. And when they left, we had a covered dish supper for them, and hundreds of people came because they had made themselves so much part of our church community.
Other questions for Margo? Thank you so much.
Robert, thank you.
For sharing that story. Yeah, let's give her a hand.
Yeah, thank you.
So I don't know whether I don't have enough to say to fill up the rest of our time. I'm hoping some of you have some thoughts. I will say that it is, I'm not sure where the camera is. I'll step back up here. As you may know, the process to arrive as a refugee is quite complicated and extensive. And when someone wants to enter this country, they have to go through a very lengthy vetting process, which is very thorough. And so when they arrive, they usually come through one of the partner agencies like Church World Service or one of the other. I think there's 8 or so. And then those agencies typically will try to find partners in the communities where the refugees will be settling, like a church or another group that will help sponsor that family to have all of the things that they need. When they come in, they usually get at least about a 30-day guarantee of all the things that they need in terms of housing, food, and other things, immediate needs, and assistance in finding places to look for work and education, things like that. As you can imagine, during the pandemic, that must have been terribly complicated as things are beginning to open up a little bit more, although, of course, we're still very concerned with the Delta variant spreading quickly. We don't know exactly what that will look like. We are, I did speak with some of Galilee Ministries this past week. The director there was not able to be here this morning, but she said, we are looking to open soon community meal. And we would love to welcome a small group from DCPC to come down and see how our ministry has expanded and how we can be in partnership. So I'll be sending out something to see if anybody would like to join us for like that down at Galilee Ministries. But it really is at the local level where the road meets the road, and the community comes together to support the family that's coming into the States to help them find the resources they need for housing, transportation, education, employment, healthcare, and all of those things. This has been done here for several families over the course of DCPC's recent memory. I think the first was that was the early 80s. Okay. Has it been 2 or 3? I was thinking 3, but you only participated with 2. I'll go back and check my records, but anyway, let me see what other comments folks have. If you'd like to speak for everyone to hear, you use this or I'll try. Yes.
My family came over, similar situation, they went over to Belarus. But this is the turn of the century, not the last one, the previous one. So, but
would you mind speaking to this if I brought it to you?
So my family came over from Belarus, not this century, the turn of the century, the previous one, 1900s, from 18 to 1900s, and before World War I. And that's about where my family came over for similar reasons, coming out of Belarus, out of Ukraine, that you talked about. I am Jewish. We have a very interesting time in our family, and wonderful holidays and good food. But I was wondering, is the church currently working with families now or looking for family? I do understand the pandemic set everything back, and I understand that, and also the previous administration reduced the ability to bring people over. But is anybody happening now?
We are not currently sponsoring a family, but we're in the process of looking for a family to sponsor. That will require several steps, similar to what Margot expressed. They work directly through the Blumenthal grant. We would work through another agency like Church World Service or getting help from Gallery Ministries. We, of course, would need session approval to be a part of that sponsorship. But our Social Justice Committee will be discussing this next immediate step, which is to learn about what families may be coming into our area and whether or not we can partner with a family. I don't know exactly how long that takes. I've not done that before. So we'll, of course, look to some of our experts who've been through it before to get some guidance, but would love to know if any of you might be interested in being a part of that. Just let me know. You've got my contact information. So. Other questions or comments? Linda.
Yes. Oh, we lived in Greensboro before we moved here, and I can't remember exactly the date, but anyway, Church World Service brought a group of people, the Hmong people, into Greensboro. I was teaching school, had recently moved at that point into Greensboro. 150 children came to our school alone. It was a huge immigration that was sponsored by also Lutheran, there's another word, Lutheran World Service or something like Lutheran something. Anyway, wonderful community sponsorship. I guess I just want to testify that Sedgefield Presbyterian Church in Greensboro was the amazing group of people that worked with our 150 kids. I could not believe the organization that went into that. There was a team that cared for transportation. There was a team who was in charge of the relationship with all the teachers that were teaching these children. There was a team working on housing. It was just amazing. But it's just the most rewarding experience. And I was looking at that group of people and wondering if I recognized any of the children, but I didn't. They were older, but it's a great experience for a church. And I just wanted to say, I'm so happy to hear what you all have done.
Thank you, Linda. Other comments, questions?
Well, it sounds like there's a lot of wonderful organizations working on this that we tap into. I wonder if there's some master list that the church puts their name in. So when there's a family, the many organizations have a list that they can reach out.
That's a great idea, and I don't know the answer to that, but I can look into that. I don't actually know. I mean, I've talked to a number of groups that go through this process. We welcomed folks from both the places that I've mentioned already. There's another organization, I'm blanking on the name right now. They're called World Relief, I believe. They do a lot of great work on refugee resettlement sort of thing. But I'm not sure if each of them keeps a list or how that works, but that's a great question to ask. Yeah, thank you. Others? Rosemary?
This isn't a question, but it's an update on the Internal family, which was our first one when talking about assimilation. And I was fortunate to teach St. Kong, which is the older child at Cornelius Elementary. And probably 2 years ago, this young woman came up to me in a restaurant in Charlotte, and she said, "Did you teach at Cornelius?" I said, "Yes." And it was Anna Sarah, who was the baby who was born right after they came and was named after Anne White. And she was getting ready to go to pieces. And then St. Kong, I just ran into Charlotte with his wife, and they're settled up by the university somewhere. So, I mean, they're Americans. This little girl's in the Peace Corps now, so.
That's such a beautiful story, and to know that folks have been able to find a new life and to thrive, and that this church is part of that story. That's inspiring to me. You know, much of the history, or liturgy, I guess you could say, of Israel was a reminder of you are strangers in a strange land, so therefore show hospitality to strangers. And we have picked that up in the Christian tradition to remember the greater history of God's people and the importance of welcoming people, showing hospitality. And as you know, the stories of Jesus were in large part about hospitality. The chapter that you were invited to read, if you saw that information from our curriculum, talks a lot about differentiating between those conversations about the other versus welcoming people to become a part of your community. So we had a reference about that a little bit in the video, where you stop seeing somebody as the other, as different, as strange, and begin to see them as a fellow human, welcome in your own community, and that they have dreams, aspirations, and they have gifts to share just like you do. And so enabling people to find a place where they can call home that's safe, where they don't have to fear for their lives, where they don't have to wonder from where the next meal is coming, where they don't have to be concerned about a bomb exploding, is a wonderful gift. So we hope to be able to give more information in the very near future about how we might be moving forward to make some of these steps and proceed with future refugee resettlement. So I don't know if there are any other comments today. If there's not, I'm going to go ahead and end our time and offer a closing prayer. So yes, sure.
Time. I left out a couple of stories. I just wanted you to know. Okay, I just wanted you to know that Yuri Kremen, the son, worked for Intel. Now has a number of patents in his name, and he's within these circles. He is quite famous because of his brilliance and his approach to his field. The other thing, and I think every single patent we can have a little tiny piece of. The other thing that was so shocking to Bill and me is that when Olga was a student, we invited her to come with us to our Jewish friends' home for Hanukkah. We always celebrated Hanukkah with them. And the woman of the family made a beautiful presentation to Olga about some of the elements of Hanukkah and the candles and what the various foods meant that she prepared, especially the potato lox. And Olga listened very carefully, very closely. And then she said, "But where's your Christmas tree?" And what we came to realize is that the repression of their religion for 2 or 3 generations meant that though they were ethnically Jewish, they knew almost nothing about their tradition. And so we thought it was extremely important to at least let Olga understand and be presented with some of this. And so we made sure that she went to the Jewish Community Center and was a veiled of this religion. But it made us very sad when she looked up and said, "But where's your Christmas tree?" So, you know, what we would experience as a church is something very similar to that, an awakening for the people that settled into Hollywood security.
Anybody else want to offer a comment? Thank you so much for coming today. Next week, we will begin a 5-week series called Speaking of Faith. It'll be held right here, and members of our community will be sharing about their faith journey and how they have experienced God's presence throughout their lives. So please come and join that class, 9:45 each week during the month of August. So thanks again for coming today. I invite you to join me in a closing prayer. Lord, we thank you for your deep love for us and for all people. Pray that you would help us to see those around us with your eyes and to welcome them with your embrace. We ask for wisdom and strength and courage to step out and perhaps make ourselves a little uncomfortable in order to provide more comfort and stability for others that desperately need it. As we find ways to partner with other organizations, we pray open doors and opportunities to work together to help make a difference for those many refugees who are struggling to find home. We thank you for this time together, and we offer these prayers in holy name. And all God's people say, Amen. Thank you so much for coming today.